This is We Need to Talk with Dr. Darcy Sterling, where I give you the tools and skills you need to love better so you can live better. We all want deeper connections with our partners, but life is busy. Making a living is exhausting, and at the end of the day, many of us are so stressed and depleted that we find ourselves stuck in surface-level conversations. Connection doesn't disappear all at once. It erodes slowly. One moment of misattunement, one unread sext, one dinner that turns into a debate over who dropped the ball. It can feel impossible to bridge the distance between the couple that you are now and the one that you used to be when you first fell in love. But what if the fix was just as subtle? What if one question a day could actually change the way you relate to your partner, maybe even save your relationship? Today, we're talking about micro moments in intimacy, why they matter more than grand gestures, and how a simple daily habit might reignite closeness, curiosity, and care. Joining me is Aly Bullock, head of relationships at an app called Paired, where over 4 million people are building better relationships, one question at a time. Aly, thanks so much for joining me. Let's start with the basics, because I think a lot of people still don't realize that relationship apps even exist. How does Paired work, and what exactly does it do for couples?
It's a beautiful question. And just like you said, people know what dating apps are, but they don't know what couples apps are. And Paired is a couples app. So it's a term that we are working hard to make more recognizable. And we can kind of talk about how Paired works both emotionally and logistically. Emotionally, Paired helps you and your partner remember why you're together and keep growing together. It does this through, fun conversation prompts and games and quizzes and other content within the app that's written and curated by therapists and experts like myself that are designed specifically to help you and your partner have conversations about important topics and also fun topics, right? It's not just deep, it's also fun and playful. And then logistically, how it works is that you and your partner, you both download the app, and then through a code, you're able to sync each other's accounts. And you enter in some basic information about your relationship so that we know, which types of questions to send to you. Like if you're a married couple, we'll use that language. If you're dating, we'll use that language, et cetera. And then every day it sends you a question to answer. And you can't see your partner's answer until you've answered it. And so it keeps you both engaged. It keeps you both curious about what the other person is going to say. And then within our, premium membership, we have unlimited content. So we have games, quizzes, question packs on all different topics. Honestly, the conversations are endless that you can have within Paired.
And what was the impetus behind formulating the app?
We saw this need for couples to have an easy way to connect every day. It sounds so silly, but when you've been together for a while, you turn into roommates, right? You're just talking logistics. Yes, you can if you're not intentional about it, right?
Yeah.
And so we noticed that so many couples, were together and felt like they were roommates, but didn't understand how simple it could be to connect and how to be intentional about that. And so Paired is designed to make it so easy, literally 3 minutes a day. But there's a lot of research that I can share with you later about how that actually impacts you and your relationship and how it improves your connection, communication, and all that.
I'm really curious about that part of it, A, because I'm a dork in the research, and B, because my wife and I have been test driving Paired for about 2 weeks now. And I'm curious how you guys landed on the types of questions that you're asking couples, like how you chose the areas of questioning and what the research shows about those questions. In my limited experience in using the app, it seemed to me like the questions are very much along the lines of they're very early questions that couples would ask each other, in fact, which makes a lot of sense to me. I hope you'll provide some context for that for our listeners. So it struck me as getting to know you questions and how well do you know your partner questions. And I'm curious why that seems to be a foundational aspect to the questions that you choose to use on Paired.
Yes. So one thing that we see happening in couples therapy all the time, as I'm a therapist, is that couples start to assume that they know everything about each other. But when you actually dig into it, there are a lot of things either they've forgotten or they haven't asked in 5 years and it's going to be a surprise. And so what you're describing, these questions that are sort of get to know you, really help couples come back to the foundation. And like I said at the beginning, remember why they liked each other in the first place.
Right.
Which is so easy to forget when you're fighting about the laundry and dishes and all that stuff. And so that's one piece of the questions. And there are kind of two genres, I'll call them. One is the question that we send out to everyone. And then there are the specific questions you can search for. And so the questions that we send out to everyone, like you're describing, are more general, kind of any relationship could answer them. And then when you want to go deeper on a topic, that's when you search in the app, let's talk about sex and intimacy, or let's talk about in-laws or whatever. And all those questions are curated. But when we talk about the research, every question has a little blurb next to it. You can click, why will this help your relationship? And there will be some source in there that talks about why this is helpful to you. For example, maybe it'll come from the Gottman Institute and all their relationship research, or maybe it'll come from emotionally focused therapy. But each question will have a description of why answering that can help you to come closer as a couple.
And what we know about the research, and as a relationship therapist, somebody who specializes in teaching the 7 core skills that research has confirmed makes relationships deeply fulfilling, the most important relationship skill, and it kind of drives me crazy. It's really frustrating because I like to teach real complex, nuanced skills. The most important relationship skill we can have is knowing our partner. When our partner feels known by us, and I'm not talking deep shit, I'm talking favorite band, favorite ice cream, favorite pizza, favorite number, color,
right,
actor, model, whatever, all of the favorites, those are the most important things to our partners. It's more important than our communication style. It's more important than our conflict resolution style. It's more important than the extent to which we've worked through our baggage. And I find that really frustrating, but I'm a scientist first, and I lean into the research. And that is really where, at least in the 2 weeks that I've used the app, that is where the core of the questions that Paired feeds me have come from.
Exactly. And you're citing, or at least what I'm hearing as a Gottman trained level 1 and 2 therapist, is love maps. So part of what they teach is you have to know your partner's inner world, and they call it a love map. Exactly what you're describing. Do I know my partner's best friend? Do I know what my partner's favorite ice cream is? And once you've created this map of your partner, that's the foundation for your relationship to grow. And so if you don't have that, what seems like basic information, how do you build that foundation of trust? Like, oh, this partner sees me and knows me and loves me. So exactly what you're sharing.
Knowing somebody's ice cream flavor, their favorite ice cream flavor, to me doesn't strike me as something that would be pivotal in the relationship, yet it feels so important to the partners. I wonder I'm sure you've gotten feedback on this. So my wife, Steph, and I got a lot of questions about each other wrong, either because we had never explored the basic questions early on in our relationship, or because after 20 years of between dating and being dating, engaged, and being married, it's been basically 20 years.
Right.
People change, people evolve.
Totally.
So if we're not constantly asking each other these questions, which we are not, most people are not, we lose sight of the updated answers. And we got a lot of those questions wrong. I wonder how that makes couples feel when what are you hearing from your users?
We do hear that at the beginning, it's exciting for couples to get something wrong because they realize, oh, I actually need this. That's part of what keeps the app engaging and interesting, is that they realize, without even knowing it, I've let some of these things slip. And they feel energized to actually recommit to putting effort into the relationship and getting to know their partner again. So a lot of our reviews that we get are from couples that in the first 3 weeks of using the app are saying, I can't believe how much I'm relearning about my partner. I can't believe how much I forgot. And it's so exciting to get to know them again. So it's actually tends to be a positive experience for partners when they're figuring out this stuff again at the beginning.
I think a lot of it has to do with the the resilience of the individual partners, I would imagine, because I can also imagine it feeling very demoralizing. And if a couple is already in trouble, they don't want confirmation that they don't know anything about their partner, even though these aspects of some of these questions, while they resonate with each of us when we know the answers, they're not core to functioning well together as a couple.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. I immediately went to, I hope that this is not an experience that people find demoralizing or that confirms their greatest fears that they're no longer compatible. And I'm glad to hear and I can imagine that being the case for some people, depending on their level of resilience with each other and depending on where they're at in their relationship. So you've worked as a therapist, and now you lead relationship content for this tech company. And I'm curious, what's something you have had to unlearn about people and how they want to receive help in your, new role here?
I love this question. It really made me think when I got it. And I think therapists sometimes can get kind of snobby about how important we are. And I used to believe that couples really needed to, do the work to fix their relationship, that strong relationships require this gritty or intense effort, and that those who aren't willing to do the work aren't setting themselves up for success. And while a piece of that is true, what I've learned that is so much truer, especially through working at Paired, is that couples who, this sounds cheesy, couples who play together, stay together.
For sure.
Right? Couples that know how to have fun and be silly and spend time on the cute stuff, on answering the questions, on planning a date night. They are actually so resilient because it's not all about the work, and work can feel really heavy. But sometimes I'll tell couples who come to me in therapy, I say, like, skip, let's not do an appointment next week and you go have a date instead. You need to go just have fun together and laugh together. And I love that Paired does that for couples. It helps them build a daily habit of being playful. So that's one thing. And then the other piece is that, in our modern day, people don't feel that they have time necessarily to go to a couples therapy office to sit down for an hour. They want more bite-sized, fast-paced help and advice. And so that's another way where Paired really meets that need, is it gives couples a tool that they can actually use every day and is so accessible and affordable.
Yeah. I'm guessing that a lot of people who download Paired are in a relationship that has hit a rough patch. How does the app support couples in that space? And do you have any data on how effective it is?
Totally. So we can talk about rough patches for a second. A lot of rough patches start or can be attributed to a communication breakdown in the first place. And it can be really hard to get out of a rough patch because when you finally try and talk about it, it becomes so overwhelming and your emotions are so high that you don't make a lot of progress in the conversation. And what Paired does is it helps overcome both of these obstacles. So first, it makes the conversations accessible and asks, the right questions that are research backed. And then also it's a third party. So part of the reason that therapy works is because it's a neutral third party. Someone is there helping moderate. And Paired is similar. When it's someone else or when it's an app asking the questions, it's so much easier not to get defensive or reactive.
I can imagine.
Totally. And so then another way, it's supporting couples in rough patches is the specific searchable content. So we have what are called journeys. They're anywhere from 7 to 30 days long, and they're almost like mini courses on a specific topic. So, we've done some of the heavy hitters, sex and intimacy after becoming parents is a big one. We have one on conflict, one on the mental load, which is a huge topic right now that couples struggle with. And so you can go and search and start one of those journeys. And then every single day for a month or 7 days, you'll get an exercise related to that pain point and be able to work through it.
Can you explain to our listeners what that last phrase was?
Yes. Oh my goodness. The mental load essentially is all the invisible stuff that usually one partner feels they are carrying mentally that their partner doesn't see or appreciate or recognize. A lot of people describe it as having 100 tabs open in their brain that they can't close out of, and their partner's oblivious. And so when I'm stressed about my mental load and my partner doesn't see it, they can dismiss me or they might not support me in the way that I need. And it can cause a lot of resentment and frustration in a relationship.
And so what does the app do when you choose that journey?
So that journey starts with talking about the foundations. What is mental load? How would you describe it so that both partners are on the same page? And then it talks about triggers. So when am I starting to feel overwhelmed by the mental load? And you kind of go through questions to help both partners become more aware. There's a section about making the invisible visible. So like actually listing out what am I carrying? And then we move into appreciation and gratitude, how to show up for each other and how to share it more evenly. And that's going to take that journey is 21 days, and it takes partners through that experience.
That's so interesting. I can't help but wonder if when people are going through that, do they experience their partner as agreeing to the other's perspective of the weight of the mental load that the partner is bearing, or does that become a point of debate?
I think it can do both, but really our goal is to start the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we want partners to just be able to talk about it, even if they don't agree or have a resolution immediately. The cool thing about the app too is that once you've answered a question, there's then a chat feature underneath where you can follow up. So if your partner gave an answer that maybe you don't agree with or you don't understand, the conversation doesn't have to end there. You can keep it going within that thread and really work through that topic if it's something where you're, kind of in gridlock.
I don't just talk about mental health, I live it. And in my 20s, I built a boutique private practice that reflects the kind of therapy I always needed. It's called Alternatives Counseling, and we are now accepting new clients. If you've ever listened to this podcast and thought, I wish I had someone to walk me through this in real life, that is exactly what we do. We work with individuals and couples, especially high achievers, who are killing it in their careers and want that same success in their personal lives. We help you build deeper, healthier connections without losing yourself in the process. This is evidence-based therapy delivered by licensed therapists who are the best of the best. Change is hard. Doing it alone is harder. Come do the work with us at alternativescounseling.com. What do you think people get wrong about maintaining long-term intimacy? And I'm curious how Paired attempts to shift that mindset.
Kind of what I mentioned earlier is this idea that it has to be so hard and has to be so much effort. I don't want to discount that, of course, relationships take work, but in reality, you can avoid so much of that hard work when you start with the small daily moments of intimacy. So when you're connected to your partner, for 5 minutes a day, you can then avoid so many of the issues that come up, disconnection, miscommunication, resentment, because you feel emotionally connected to them. And so Paired, is on a mission to help couples understand that it doesn't have to be so hard. It can literally take 3 minutes a day. And I've got my research listed out. I can share with you in a minute about how that changes couples, but it really doesn't have to be so much hard work. And couples need to shift their mindset to have more play in their relationship.
I agree that couples need to have more play for sure. I think Americans and I think everyone needs to have more play in their life. I think life is very heavy and serious right now, and we all need to laugh a lot more and take things a lot less seriously. But I worry that it perpetuates unintentionally, perhaps, this myth that relationships shouldn't be hard and that if they are hard, it's the wrong partner.
Totally. I can see where you're coming from. The thing is, what Pair does is it helps you talk about the hard topics in a playful way. And so I think what I'm trying to say is that not everything has to be heavy. Like you have to do the hard work to get on the same page about sex. But you could do that, having a really intense, difficult therapy session. Or you could do that, by answering some fun questions and doing some quizzes. And of course, not every partner, if you're in crisis, go to therapy, right? It's not going to be the solution for every situation.
Or ideally, before you're in crisis, go to therapy, because we have a much higher efficacy rate if you hit us up before you're on fire than when we have to be firefighters.
So true. Yes, so true. But I think couples need to realize they can having these conversations doesn't have to be so scary, essentially.
Correct. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Well, let's dive into the research. What does the research bear?
Yes. So a few years ago, we decided to do a study on paired specifically. So we went to the Open University and the University of Brighton. And what they did is they followed couples who used paired for 3 months. And they built a quality of relationship index that they tested at the beginning and at the end and found some amazing gains overall. So the overall relationship quality that people scored on this index shot up 36%. And confidence in resolving conflict specifically tripled.
Wow.
Nearly every user, so 98% at the end of this 3 months, ended up saying that they communicate openly with their partner.
Wow.
And then the kicker was that couples who opened the app a few minutes a day for 6 or 7 times a week, so daily, essentially, they had the biggest payoff that we saw. So
and what percentage of your users do open it daily?
That's
because like with every app, we tend to use it more consistently in the beginning and then we trail off.
I actually don't have the answer to that question.
Yeah, and I'm curious, like over what amount of time, like for how long before they saw that result?
What we found about how long it takes to see a result is that about after a month, you're first going to notice those shifts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
that
then
feels fair.
In the second 30-day window, those resolving conflict skills actually doubled. And then it took the full 90 days to see the measurable, 36% increase in relationship satisfaction. So over the course of 3 months, you will see results, but you can see them in as soon as 30 days.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm curious, what's the sustainability of those results? Like, did you check 6 months out, a year out, a year and a half out to see if those results were sustainable?
I don't have that data on this study, but that is a beautiful question. And I was actually just talking to our COO today about how
beaten in my head at a PhD level.
Yes.
That, they're like, behavioral
Yes.
change is important, short-term change is important, but it's the beginning. And if it doesn't stick, we need things to be sticky.
Exactly. Yeah. He was telling me today, he was like, my task for Q3 is our follow-up to get our follow-up off the ground. So we're going to see those results coming through.
How long has the app been out for?
The app has been out for about 5 years.
Okay.
This study was done in 2021.
That was an interesting moment in time to be measuring relationship satisfaction.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Just for those of you who might have amnesia or have blocked out the pandemic, that was like coming up to the 1 year mark was we were and are still in a declining mental health crisis globally, but there we were in the we hadn't even seen the peak of it at that point. So if anything, I would imagine that those scores would be conservative. I'm not familiar with the survey instrument that you used. What is it called again?
The University of Brighton created it. It's called the Quality of Relationship Index. Mm-hmm. And I can share a link with you for the show notes as well as the overview of that research from that study.
So what were the changes that the researchers at the University of Brighton saw in relationships after using the app?
So 36% of people had a boost in overall relationship health. And that was on the Quality of Relationship Index. Then we saw that the daily habits had the biggest payoff. So those who opened the app 6 to 7 times a week logged the highest gains across every metric. And those other metrics are communication. So after 3 months, 98% said that they now communicate openly with their partner. And that was at the mid 70s in the signups when they first completed the metric. And then conflict resolution confidence tripled. Those who shared that they strongly agree that they can discuss and resolve disagreements jumped from 16 to 46% in 90 days.
I didn't see that on the app. Where in the app do you get to learn conflict resolution skills?
So those are some of the journeys. There's a conflict journey. And also the questions talk about challenging topics sometimes. And so it's not just a question about conflict resolution. It's a couple saying, oh, I feel after answering these questions and having communication, having conversations about these topics, I feel better equipped to handle difficult topics openly.
Interesting. So it's not so much that you're actually skills-based teaching.
Exactly.
You're just exposing them to having conversations that they might be bypassing in their normal everyday life.
Exactly. The emotional connection deepened. So those who said that we strongly agree, we feel positively connected, climbed from 61% to 78%. And then this one everyone loves, the sex talks got easier. So
that's really important. I mean, they usually can't get any worse. So, I mean, the bar was pretty low, but we need to find creative ways to have conversations about sexual intimacy. We absolutely do.
Yes. And that is by far our most popular content on the app is all of the sex content. People love it. So people felt more comfortable discussing their sex life. That rose from 45% to 55% said they were more comfortable talking about sex. Then at the end of the study, users credited Paired for this change. So 85% of the daily users said that they directly credited Paired for their improved communication, which is pretty cool.
That's great. That's really, really great. I am curious, and I didn't have this experience when I first logged on. I don't know if you have rolled out any new features in the last month or so, but what I would be curious to learn is like, what is their current relationship level of satisfaction? What are their pain points when they begin using Paired? And then to like roll out little measurements of that like every 30 days. I think that would be really, really interesting.
I love that. I know we are rolling out new onboarding data. We want to be able to collect a little bit more data, like you're saying, about couples so that we can feed them content that will be helpful for them. For example, we can suggest a journey or we can suggest a question pack. So if they've marked that, managing step parenting is a difficult subject for them, right? We can then feed them some questions about that. A feature that we recently launched, which we're so excited about, is called Relationship Insights. So when a couple answers the question at least 3 times a week, but it's better if they answer 7 days a week, at the end of the week, they will get their personalized relationship insights. So we are using AI to analyze their answers and based on their answers to those questions, generate strength and growth areas for that couple. And at the end of the week, they can look through their report and it will share their strength and growth areas and then give them a suggestion for something that they can do to improve in one of those areas.
Interesting. That is interesting. And has that been rolled out yet, or is it about to be rolled out?
That has been rolled out. It rolled out about a month ago. And we've gotten some good feedback on it so far. So we're excited about where that is.
That's great. So where can people download Paired?
You can download Paired on the App Store, the iOS App Store or Google Play Store. And you can also go to paired.com. At paired.com, we have the app, of course, but then we also have a magazine with different articles with our research on different topics, different blog posts that you can read about some of the important relationship topics that you're struggling with. And then on all our social media channels, you can find us as well at Paired App on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We have a new channel on there where we're doing long form content. So all over the place, you can find us.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time today, Aly. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Darcy. It was great to be here.
Final note. The Quality of Relationship Index, the survey instrument that Aly mentioned in the episode, was created specifically to evaluate the Paired app. It is not a standardized tool, and its questions weren't taken from any existing validated tools because it was just built for this study and hadn't been tested outside of the Paired app or with any other groups. The results that Aly mentioned should be interpreted with caution. To put this into perspective, when I was earning my PhD at NYU, I wasn't allowed to create my own questionnaire to measure outcomes. I was told that doing that wouldn't meet academic standards. We Need to Talk with Dr. Darcy Sterling is a Sterling Standard production. Editing and sound engineering is by Bart Migal. Our theme music is by Trending Music. Special thanks to Amanda Christiani, Robin Genshin, and Inez Gut. I want to keep We Need to Talk free and not behind a paywall. I also want to keep making these episodes for you. So for me to keep doing that, I need you to please make sure that you follow the show if you don't already. And ideally, share this episode with a friend or two. So do that for me, and I will keep showing up for you just as I have been, to give you the free quality content with facts that you can rely on. We'll be back on Tuesday with another episode packed with the relationship, dating, and mental health hacks you've come to expect. References are always linked in the show notes. I will see you soon.